very proud of our progress with our partners this past year in a second important area, and that area is exercises and training. That expands our common readiness, it deepens our interoperability, and it helps defend the principles that we share. So we've stepped up the complexity, the jointness, and the scale of our combined exercises with our allies and partners. Take our Keen Sword exercises with Japan, which this year used existing and emerging capabilities in a far more integrated manner. Or take our Talisman Sabre exercise with Australia, which was joined last time by Canada, Japan, New Zealand, the UK, and for the first time, the Republic of Korea. In April, the United States and the Philippines held our annual Balakatan exercise. It was our 37th time and the largest and most complex iteration involving some 9,000 troops. And last spring, the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group rotated through the Indian Ocean. And we conducted simultaneous joint operations with the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force that integrated air power and anti-submarine warfare. We're also finding new ways for our friends to operate together and looking for new constellations of partners, including good friends from Europe and beyond. Just think of La Pérouse, an exercise last spring with navies from Australia, France, India, and Japan. Or consider Garuda Shield, our annual bilateral exercise with Indonesia. And this August, for the first time, we're expanding it. It will now include a total of 14 participating countries, including Australia, Canada, Japan, and Singapore. And later this month, we'll host the 28th iteration of RIMPAC. Forces from 26 countries with 38 ships and nearly 25,000 personnel will gather along U.S. shores for the world's largest naval exercise. Now, we're also working more closely with our partners in ways that aren't quite so visible. And that includes tackling gray zone actions that chip away at international laws and norms. And we're bringing to bear the full resources of the U.S. government to do so. And that includes unprecedented Coast Guard investments in the Indo-Pacific. And I'm proud to say that the Coast Guard's new outstanding Commandant, Admiral Linda Fagan, is here with us in Singapore, and within her first 2 weeks on the job, that I might add. You know, it's the first time that a U.S. Coast Guard Commandant has joined us at the Shangri-La Dialogue. And it's a sign of how important Southeast Asia is to the Coast Guard. Next year, our Coast Guard will also deploy a cutter to Southeast Asia and Oceania. And that will open up new opportunities for multinational crewing, training, and cooperation across the region. And it will be the first major U.S. Coast Guard cutter permanently stationed in the region. And that brings me to a third important aspect of our common efforts to defend our shared principles. More and more, we're working in new and flexible and custom-made ways with our friends. And our partners are doing the same thing with one another. Even as we strengthen our commitment to ASEAN's centrality and its leading place in the regional architecture. And that's meant the rise of nimble and flexible security networks that add stability to the region. You see this trend in new, important new discussions about regional security, with different groups of partners talking together about shared challenges and working together in new ways. Since 2015, Australia, India, and Japan have been holding security dialogues about maritime security cooperation. In just the past few months, Japan and the Philippines launched a new 2+2 dialogue, and so did Australia and India. Our trilateral defense cooperation with Australia and Japan remains pivotal, and we continue to integrate our three militaries in key areas. I was also glad to attend the ADMM Plus last year, and I look forward to meeting with ASEAN defense ministers again this fall. And meanwhile, over the past 18 months, we've helped to bring new vigor to the Quad. That includes a third Quad Leaders Summit last month, bringing together four of the region's largest producers of prosperity and security. And as the Quad leaders have noted, they are eager to work with ASEAN and the Pacific Islands to advance our shared goals. We're also working together to make the region's security architecture more transparent and more inclusive. So think of the new Indo-Pacific Partnership for Maritime Domain Awareness, which President Biden announced in Tokyo last month. Now, this important initiative aims to provide better access to space-based and maritime domain awareness to countries across the region, including here in Southeast Asia. And this new partnership will harness together regional information centers that will help us build a common operating picture and work together to tackle illegal fishing and other gray zone activities. In today's interconnected world, we're also seeing new ways to support our European security partners, growing engagement in the Indo-Pacific. So we'll keep expanding our consultations with European countries on regional security issues. And we'll deepen and widen the dialogue and cooperation among NATO and our core Indo-Pacific allies. You know, several of our European allies have been deploying to the Indo-Pacific and operating alongside our partners here in unprecedented ways. The United Kingdom made history last year with its deployment of the HMS Queen Elizabeth as part of a multinational carrier strike group that included a U.S. destroyer, an American Marine Corps F-35 squadron, and so it was a significant accomplishment. Such deployments send a message of strength and stability, and that's deeply important for all the peoples of the region. And it's especially important given the challenges to security and stability in the Indo-Pacific. As our national defense strategy notes, we all face a persistent threat from North Korea. The United States will stand ready, always stand ready, to deter aggression and to uphold our treaty commitments to and the will of the UN Security Council. North Korea's habitual provocations and missile tests only underscore the urgency of our task. And so we're deepening the security cooperation among the United States, Japan, and the Republic of Korea. Together, we will continue to strengthen our extended deterrence against nuclear arms and ballistic missile systems. And we remain open to future diplomacy and fully prepared to deter and to defeat future aggression. We'll also stand by our friends as they uphold their rights. And that's especially important as the PRC adopts a more coercive and aggressive approach to its territorial claims. In the East China Sea, the PRC's expanding fishing fleet is sparking tensions with its neighbors. In the South China Sea, the PRC is using outposts on man-made islands bristling with advanced weaponry to advance its illegal maritime claims. We're seeing PRC vessels plunder the region's provisions, operating illegally within the territorial waters of other Indo-Pacific countries. And further to the west, we see Beijing continue to harden its position along the border that it shares with India. You know, Indo-Pacific countries shouldn't face political intimidation, economic coercion, or harassment by maritime militias. So the Department of Defense will maintain our active presence across the Indo-Pacific. We will continue to support the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling, and we will fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows. And we'll do this right alongside our partners. And we'll continue to be candid about the challenges that we all face. You know, we've seen an alarming increase in the number of unsafe aerial intercepts and confrontations at sea by PLA aircraft and vessels. In February, a PLA Navy ship directed a laser at an Australian P-8 maritime patrol aircraft, seriously endangering everyone on board. And in the past few weeks, PLA fighters have conducted a series of dangerous intercepts of Allied aircraft operating lawfully in the East China and South China Seas. Now, this should worry us all. And the stakes are especially stark in the Taiwan Strait. Our policy is unchanged and unwavering. It has been consistent across administrations. And we are determined to uphold the status quo that has served this region so well for so long. So let me be clear. We remain firmly committed to our long-standing One China policy, guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. We categorically oppose any unilateral changes to the status quo from either side, and we do not support Taiwan independence. And we stand firmly behind the principle that cross-strait differences must be resolved by peaceful means. Now, as a part of our One China policy, we will continue to fulfill our commitments under the Taiwan Relations Act. And that includes assisting Taiwan in maintaining a sufficient self-defense capability. And it means maintaining our own capacity to resist any use of force or other forms of coercion that would jeopardize the security or the social or economic system of the people of Taiwan. So our policy hasn't changed. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be true for the PRC. As my friend Secretary of State Blinken has also noted, we see growing coercion from Beijing. We've witnessed a steady increase in provocative and destabilizing military activity near Taiwan. And that includes PLA aircraft flying near Taiwan in record numbers in recent months, and nearly on a daily basis. And we remain focused on maintaining peace, stability, and the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. But the PRC's moves threaten to undermine security and stability and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. And that's crucial for this region. And it's crucial for the wider world. Maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait isn't just a U.S. interest. It's a matter of international concern. So let me be clear. We do not seek confrontation or conflict. And we do not seek a new Cold War, an Asian NATO, or a region split into hostile blocs. We will defend our interests without flinching. But we'll also work toward our vision for this region, one of expanding security, one of increased cooperation, and not one of growing division. And I continue to believe that big powers carry big responsibilities. And so we will do our part to manage these tensions responsibly and to prevent conflict and to pursue peace and prosperity. And as I said in Singapore last year, great powers should be models of transparency and communication. So we're working closely with both our competitors and our friends to strengthen the guardrails against conflict. And that includes fully open lines of communication with China's defense leaders to ensure that we can avoid any miscalculations. And these are deeply, deeply important conversations. The United States is fully committed to doing our part. And that's why I'm here today. I am proud of our commitment to this region. I'm proud of our unmatched and unrivaled network of allies and partners. I'm proud of our commitment to openness and human dignity. You know, in recent decades, we've become even more inclusive in our approach to the Indo-Pacific. We've expanded our cooperation with our allies and partners, and we've worked in tandem with new and existing regional institutions. And all of that builds new habits of cooperation across this region. And it builds on old friendships in the Indo-Pacific, going back for many, many decades. We seek inclusion, not division. We seek cooperation and not strife. And that means we're following the wise counsel from Prime Minister Lee, who argues that nobody should force binary choices on the region. He's right. Our fellow Indo-Pacific nations should be free to choose, free to prosper, and free to chart their own course. Ladies and gentlemen, this region has already cast its vote on what kind of a future it seeks. It's an interconnected and optimistic future, one rooted in the rule of law and a profound commitment to freedom and openness. And it's a future that we can only make real by working together. As President Kennedy put it back in 1962, quote, "Acting on our own by ourselves, we cannot establish justice throughout the world, or provide for its common defense, or promote its general welfare. But joined with other free nations, we can do all this and more. And ultimately, we can help to achieve a world of law and of free choice, banishing the world of war and coercion." Now that's a vision worth working for. It's a vision grounded in the best traditions of the United States. And it's a vision that reaches for the highest aspirations for the Indo-Pacific. We don't believe that this vision can be imposed, but we do believe that it can be achieved by working together, by listening to one another, and by acting as good friends and good neighbors, and by, again, showing the world the power of partnership. It's great to be here with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. That's one of the strongest statements we've heard from this podium, a clear declaration that American strategy is rooted in the Indo-Pacific, which is the center of gravity of its strategic effort, a specific assertion that sharing the fruits of your R&D success with allies and partners and testing game-changing technologies with each other is an important priority. And I think everybody will have taken note also of your concluding remark that no country should be forced to make binary choices. Thank you very much for that and all the other things that were in your remarks. I have a number of people who've asked the floor, and I'll turn to them in a group shortly. I just want to ask the Secretary one question before I go back to the floor, so we deal with that other issue in the world that is now occupying so many people's minds. Secretary Austin, when you were in CENTCOM, one of your big duties was to ensure that the Straits of Hormuz would be open so that oil could flow through it. And indeed, often it was argued that America's Middle East strategy was linked to its Indo-Pacific strategy, because without being able to keep the Straits of Hormuz open, Asians wouldn't be able to benefit from the oil that was produced and sold from there. Now in the Black Sea, you have 22 million tons of grains, many of which will be going to countries in this region, or should be going, for example, to Indonesia. And as a consequence of the war, the Black Sea is effectively closed. There are many efforts of negotiation with Russia and Ukraine and others to seek a way to opening that. But given that that's such an important humanitarian necessity, can you envision a role for navies and the military to support the humanitarian effort to ensure that humanitarian traffic grains can flow from the ports in the Black Sea to other places in the world?
Well, let me just say that this is a very important issue, and one that leaders in the region and across the globe are focused on. When you ask whether or not our militaries of the region and of the world can add value, of course we can. But we would always want to seek a diplomatic solution first, and I see a lot of energy in that area ongoing as we speak, and we would hope that the right things happen. But this didn't have to happen. We are here because of the choice of one man, the choice of Vladimir Putin. He chose to invade his neighbor, unprovoked invasion. This was not based on any kind of logic or reason, and we see the consequences of actions like that. And so I think that reminds us of how important the rules-based international order is. So.
I'll turn the floor, take 3 or 4 in a group. First, from the Republic of Korea, Chung Min Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. My question to you is, as we speak, Russian and Chinese bombers are intruding into Korean and Japanese air defense identification zones. And as a result, one of the reasons why, at the end of this month, at the Madrid summit, the leaders of Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand will be participating in a NATO summit for the first time. What can your close allies do here in the region to augment European security and vice versa? Thank you very much.
If you like to.
I didn't hear the end of that. What could we do to...
Go ahead.
My question was, what can your 4 closest allies do in the region to augment European security, because the leaders of Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand will be participating in the NATO summit in Madrid this June?
Well, first of all, countries from this region, as you heard me say earlier, have been very supportive of the effort in Europe. Thus far, they've provided, a number of countries have provided security assistance, and other countries have provided humanitarian assistance, and this is very, very important. You've seen me pull together ministers of defense from across the globe, quite frankly, to focus on those things that we can do to continue to help Ukraine as it struggles to defend its sovereign territory. And I say struggle, but quite frankly, we're all proud of the work that the Ukrainians have done. They are absolutely inspiring in terms of their commitment to their democracy, their will to defend their land. And I think there are great lessons to be learned from from that for all of us in terms of their commitment. But again, I will host another one of those meetings in about a week as I go to Brussels. We started out with 40 countries contributing capability. It grew the next meeting to 47 countries, and now it's over 50 countries. And that shows you how much the global community cares about this issue and how much countries around the world want to help Ukraine in its effort to defend its sovereign territory.
Thanks very much. And next from the U.S., Bonnie Glazer, if you can put up your hand as well. It looks like your microphone is working. Go ahead. Bonnie.
Thank you, Secretary Austin. The most dangerous potential conflict in the Indo-Pacific is a war in the Taiwan Strait that would arise from a Chinese attempt to seize Taiwan by force. And President Biden has recently said, repeated actually, that he would defend Taiwan if attacked. What are the steps that the United States, our allies, and Taiwan need to take to bolster deterrence so that peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait can be preserved? Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. First of all, you've heard me say and heard a number of our leaders, senior leaders, say that we think that any unilateral change to the status quo would be unwelcome and ill-advised. I would just highlight that our policy on Taiwan has not changed. We remain committed to a one China policy, and we also remain committed to providing Taiwan with the military means to defend itself in accordance with the Taiwan Relations Act. And so I know that countries across the region and across the globe are really focused on this issue, but I really, as I said in my remarks here, really want to highlight that our Taiwan policy has not changed. So.
And from the Philippines, again, put your hand up, Jeffrey Ordoniel, but it looks like your microphone is working, so go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. When China started building artificial islands in the South China Sea, the United States said that there would be consequences. China completed those artificial islands. The United States also said that there would be consequences if China militarized those islands. China militarized those islands anyway, stationing bombers and fighter jets. So I guess many of us here are curious, what will be different in the Biden administration's approach to the South China Sea? Because it seems that the current policy is not working, or at least not changing the behavior of China. Thank you.
Yeah, so some of the consequences that we've seen is that we've seen allies and partners grow closer together and work together in a more deliberate way to make sure that they have the ability to protect their interests and their territorial waters. And we've seen, again, in the last couple of years, bonds continue to strengthen. We've also seen, like-minded countries bond together to create new capabilities. So the effect has been that it's had an effect, that there are some consequences, and those consequences are a much more united region, a region that's focused ever so much more on a vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. So I think there have been consequences.
And next from Singapore, Lin Kwok. Go ahead.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Secretary Austin. Yesterday, Prime Minister Kishida cautioned that Ukraine today may be East Asia tomorrow. Do you share the Japanese Prime Minister's concern, and if so, why? Would it be because of a general sense that Ukraine reminds us that war anywhere is possible and we should not be complacent? Or perhaps because the United States has concrete concerns that China is like Russia, because both are autocracies, and will therefore act like it?
I would say I would think it's the former, that anything is possible, and so I mean there's a reason that we have militaries to defend our sovereign territory, and so we need to be mindful of the fact that those militaries, our defenses, need the right kinds of capabilities. I go back to the questions that I asked earlier. Do rules matter? Does sovereignty matter? Is this rules-based international order important to us? Well, I think the answer to that question is yes. I think it's been remarkable to see the global response as a result of Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. There's strong indication across this globe, around this globe, that countries around the globe truly value the international rules-based order and adherence to that order. So I think there's a powerful lesson there.
Franz Stefan Gatti, last question.
Thank you, John. Mr. Secretary, you mentioned game-changing technologies in your speech. Could you perhaps elaborate what technology specifically you have in mind here? And furthermore, do you foresee any changes in U.S. force posture in the region as a result of these game-changing technologies in the near to medium term? Thank you.
Thanks, Franz Stefan. No, I won't go into any detail on emerging technologies, only to say that, we continue to invest a substantial amount of our budget, our defense budget. You heard me say $130 billion dedicated to RDT&E, research and development. We believe that in order to remain relevant, we have to make sure that we're investing in the right kinds of things to support the operational concepts that we think are important in any conflict, that we'll employ in any conflict going forward. I would just say that it's important for us to continue to work with our allies and partners as we develop these technologies. And you heard me commit to doing that in my remarks, and we're serious about that. And so, but I won't elaborate on any of the specific technologies in this forum.
So we've closed this session according to our clock with 2 seconds remaining. I want to thank you very much, Secretary Austin, and also to say that we should actually draw comfort from the fact that you can't say very much about the emerging technologies that you might be sharing with allies and partners, because it implies those technologies will be extremely valuable to their security and to maintaining peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific. I've got 33 people on the list, a couple of people still waving their hands, but it's inevitable in a session like this, especially with the U.S. Secretary of Defense. There will be more questions than time available to answer them. Be reassured that I will find you for the next session. But for the meantime, please thank Secretary Austin for his plenary address to the Shangri-La Dialogue. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That the next plenary begins immediately. We're only engaged in a staging break at present, where name tags will be changed, another chair added, and I would ask the 3 speakers in the next session to approach the stage and join me so that we can begin within 2 or 3 minutes of the end of this session. Thank you very much.